Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the How Much Do They Make series. Today, we've got a cracking guest. Ed is a cybersecurities expert in the sales space. Ed, welcome to the Humble Penny.
Hey Ken, great to be here.
Do you want to just start by telling us, because I've heard a lot about cybersecurity, but you work in like sales as well. So, do you want to start by telling us, give us a background on what you do for a living and for how long you've been doing it?
The easiest way to describe what I do is I stop bad things happening to good organizations. But a lot of people think when I talk about cybersecurity, they think that I'm a techie, right?
Okay.
I am not a techie. I work on the sales side. So my
Okay.
job is to help um, sell our solutions to protect customers from the bad guys.
Interesting. So what kind of customers are we talking here? Are we talking like banks or like what kind of customers do you serve?
So it can be anything from a couple of hundred user business that's just
Mhm.
trying to do what they do and
Mm.
keep themselves protected to large global banks. So it really
Wow.
ranges depending on kind of where the customer sits in the industry or
Mm.
in the market. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how did you get into doing it? Because this is quite a niche, cybersecurity and sales. Give us a sense of your background. Like, did you need particular qualifications to get into this role? Talk to us about that.
So I'm just going to be 100% transparent. I didn't go to university. I didn't go to college.
Wow.
When I left school, I was 15 years old,
Mhm.
and I actually wanted to be in the forces. I wanted to be a Royal Marine. Um,
Ah.
but I signed myself up to go down the Royal Marine path.
Mhm.
And then I was kind of 16. I thought, do you know what? I don't know if I'm quite ready to go in the armed forces. So
Mm.
I kind of just tried to find the first job I could.
Mhm.
And actually, I started working at Legoland. I did a whole season at Legoland.
Wow.
And for those of you that know Legoland in Windsor, it's a great place to go. Lots of fun
Mhm.
memories. But I did kind of a season there. Became into my late teens. I was like, I need a proper job.
Mm.
Um, and then I just started kind of working. I started getting a job where sales became part of what I did in an office job. And
Okay.
then I kind of fell into this sort of cybersecurity space by complete accident.
Wow.
And I've been there for the last 11 years now. So moved
Wow.
myself from company to company in different types of roles, trying to kind of get more senior as I go. And
Yeah.
yeah, cybersecurity is a really interesting space to be in. But it's funny that you said at the start there, it's a niche. Actually,
Yeah.
cybersecurity is a massive market. It's a
Wow.
multi-billion dollar market globally. So it's a big one.
Wow. That is fascinating. Like, honestly, for me, it says a lot in that a lot of people think the only way to, and we're going to talk about your income because, like, I think that's going to inspire people. People think you need, obviously, education is important and all those things. But for me, it's really, even for me, it's inspiring to hear that, even though you didn't go down that traditional path, you've still found yourself in a really successful path. Do you want to just explain to us, what does a day in your life at work look like? From when you wake up, kind of just give us a quick tour of what that kind of looks like daily.
So it's really interesting. So my role within the market that is cybersecurity
Mm.
is not just me selling directly to customers. So me finding the
Okay.
next customer and saying, "Hey, do you want to buy some cybersecurity stuff?" I
Mhm.
actually help and support and manage a number of partners that can
Mhm.
scale. So if you imagine, I work for company A and we have 10 salespeople, for example.
Okay.
We can only scale to that many reaches to that many customers, right?
Mhm.
So there are these resellers that sit in the market that have much bigger sales teams and much bigger client bases. That if we can empower and enable those partners that sit
Oh.
underneath us, we can start getting reach and scale to their thousands and hundreds of thousands of customers. So we kind of call that like a channel in the IT.
Okay.
Top of the pyramid is the people that make the product. Then
Mhm.
in like the middle, you've got people that kind of resell that product and others to lots more. And then you've
Mhm.
kind of got massive amounts of customers on the bottom. So if
Wow.
you're smart about it, you can kind of have a force multiplier effect where you're almost doubling, tripling, quadrupling your own sales force by partnering with other companies. So my role on a day to day is helping to manage strategically one of these partners to enable them to sell cybersecurity to their customers.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Like even for me, I feel like I'm learning a lot about marketing and just listening to you because there's real power in partnerships, and it's clear that this is an area that you're well versed in, and I think many more people who run businesses really need to pay attention to the power of partnerships. Do you want to just speak to like, you're clearly having success in this role you're in, but do you want to speak to what top three things you'd say make you a success at what you do? What sort of habits and things are helping you in this role?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, you need to do what you say you're going to do. Just
Hmm.
always commit to the things that you agree you're going to go after, and try and under commit and over deliver, because I've met a number of people in my job and in my industry where you just know that that person or that partner is just not going to deliver on what they say they're going to do.
Okay.
And I've had so much pleasure and joy in being able to work with people that you can really count on. And
Hmm.
you often then find, as a knock-on effect,
Hmm.
you're the person that gets the phone call when there's a job opportunity that comes up, or you're the person that gets a recommendation for something really exciting that you might not think would even happen 18 months down the line.
Mm.
That's number one. Number two is always push yourself into uncomfortable situations. So I quite enjoy the public speaking part of my role. So I do
Okay.
deliver a number of presentations, lots of whiteboarding, lots of public speaking, and I will always put my hand up to say, hey, well up for pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And
Mm.
I, 3 or 4 years ago, I wasn't a very good communicator in that sense, but I've become to learn and love that part of my role because
Hmm.
I've pushed myself there. So, you know, you don't have to know everything
Mm.
now, but just know that you will one day learn how to do it. And there's
Love that.
nothing like kind of baptism of fire for any kind of new skill that you want to acquire, right? Like,
Love that.
no one ever did anything good by just staying in their safe little box, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And then the third one is probably making sure you widen your network. So ensuring that you you think a little bit beyond what you're trying to do right now, and you think, right, if I can create a relationship with this person or these people, how might that give me some ROI, in 5 years' time, right? When
Wow.
they might need a bit of help on a project, or an interesting company that they're now working for, they want to bring you
Yeah.
into, right? So you're not burning your bridges is like, 101 in my industry. You want to make sure
Mm.
that because where I work in cybersecurity, it's very what we call incestuous. Everyone knows each
Got
other.
it.
When
Yeah.
something bad happens, it's like, oh, did you hear about that guy over there? That kind of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, making sure that you always have a good network behind you is key.
Love that. So, wow, that's really powerful. Do you want to speak to what would you say you love about what you do, Ed?
Being able to positively impact people's behavior, that's probably the most rewarding part. So
Mm.
I'll expand on that. If you think about it, you could whittle my job down to one thing: is how can I help persuade partners and customers to
Mhm.
make decisions that benefit themselves and, as a byproduct, me, right,
Mm.
by buying my solutions that we have to offer. So when I'll give you a story. So we in my current role, we delivered a whiteboarding session recently to 15 new people, new grads, new
Mhm.
recruits for my particular partner.
Yeah.
And we delivered some really good whiteboarding, and we said to them, right, now it's your turn to deliver that back to us.
Yeah.
And they're a bit scared, and they're a bit not sure what's going on. And it was so rewarding to see them actually deliver us a fantastic version of their own version of that whiteboard, that story that
Mm.
they can then take on to their customers.
Mhm.
And we got some fantastic feedback saying that it was one of the best enablement sessions that they've had, ever. So
Mhm.
seeing and hearing people put into practice what you have tried to enable them is
Mhm.
just a really rewarding thing. And then when they call me up 6 months later saying, Ed, just closed that deal, thanks so much for your help, knowing that you're helping pay their bills, and by direct they're helping pay your bills, it's just this
Yeah.
kind of circle of positivity that can happen when you help
Yeah.
change people's behavior in a positive way.
I love that. Um, and let's speak about challenges. Like, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job?
So we're dealing with people, right? And people intrinsically have egos and emotions, and things don't always go smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And when things don't go smoothly, people's egos get hurt and they feel hard done by. So managing people and their expectations is hard, and
Mm.
making sure that you've got a fine balance between that personal relationship but that business relationship at the same time. So when something does happen and people are pointing the fingers at you or your company, to kind
Yeah.
of pause, take that breath and go, right, how do I deal with this in a professional manner that's
Mhm.
productive outcome for everyone? And sometimes there's more than one or two or three entities at that present time, so making sure that you've got a good grounded place to not let emotions override within business, I think is
Yeah.
key.
Wow. Let's talk about money. This is a personal finance channel. People are very curious about, what people earn. Do you want to speak to us about your kind of earnings? Like, what do you earn in this job, and like, what kind of sources, where does it come from?
Yeah, so my where I am currently, so I do earn commission, right? And I have a OTE and a base salary. So before this call, I had a little look at my kind of average, because it's very spiky, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah, yeah,
like a couple of slow things and then a big hike
yeah.
here. But I thought I'd give you some averages. So last 6 months, my average earnings was probably about just over 11K a month.
Wow.
And then, if I looked at my last couple of years of earnings, I'm still on that upward trajectory. So I earned my first 100K a couple of years ago. Last year was, I think, about 120K. This year, probably it'll be the 130, 150 mark,
Wow.
in terms of earnings. Yeah.
That's incredible. Can I just say, first of all, like for anyone else who's watching, it's clear that being a sales business is definitely pays off massively from an income perspective. I know because like I've worked with lots of sales guys, and they have months that that are low, and they have stupidly high months. But then when you average out, the numbers are pretty impressive. And given your journey, kind of given your background, so far, it's clear to me that you're the kind of guy who's pretty determined. You clearly want to have success in your career, and you're having it. But given where you've come from, you don't have the backlog of student loans. You don't have the backlog of, the very many things that many people who watch our channel are struggling with, but
Yeah.
yet you're hitting, that high level of income. I think that's just absolutely incredible. Do you want to speak to what is the maximum income potential for someone in your job? Like how high could that go? Like I'm sure it wasn't like 10 grand, like maybe a few years ago, or 11 grand a month on average. How high could it actually go in your opinion?
So I definitely don't earn the maximum. So I know many people that earn well over the 200, 300, 400K mark.
Wow.
You can earn a serious amount of cash in this business, and most of that is based on your experience
Mm,
and with clients and partners
interesting.
and your track record. So if you have a solid and predictable track record of being
Mm,
able to, crack open new customers, help customers solve challenges, and
mhm,
you start building that network, typically that only tends to keep going one way.
mhm.
But I've seen some absolutely mental numbers come from some top performing sellers of 250 to 500K to £1 million of
Wow.
earnings. I knew one guy and one of my partners that earned he had one commission check for 1 month for over £1 million, which was just crazy.
Whoa. Can I just check something? Are you having to find those partners yourself, or are they found for you by the company and then you're managing the relationship and then trying to sell more to that particular client? How does that work?
Yes, you've got different partners in different stages. So my current title and role is a strategic partnership manager. So
Got
I
it.
manage a relationship with a small number of very strategic partners that have
Yeah.
been selling our solutions for quite a long time. So it's
Mhm.
my job to kind of go in there, look at the business and start going, right, how can I double and treble this business over a
Yeah.
3 and 5 year period of time? But you
Yeah.
might find different roles where do you know what? It's more growth. So they're trying to find the next partner. So you might be coming in to identify who's the next partner that takes us to the stratosphere of growth. So
Hmm.
it's really diverse, and there's so many roles out there, honestly.
Interesting. So, what top three pieces of advice would you give somebody who's listening to you now and going, do you know what, Ed, I want to be like this guy. I want to be in his shoes one day. What top three pieces of advice would you give someone who wants to be in your job, doing what you're doing one day and earning at your level?
Um, all you need is drive and energy. You do not need to be an expert in cybersecurity. You don't even need to be an expert in IT. You just need to have an interest in what's happening in the world. Cybercrime, I learned the other day, is the third biggest economy globally.
Wow.
Massive, right? So there's huge growth areas there for anyone. You do not need university degree. You do not need to go to college for this stuff. You just need to want it and to be able to practice and hone in your communication skills to convey a message. If you can do those two things, then you'll be successful, and you'll be an attractive candidate for someone. And then from more of a discipline and drive perspective, if you can stand out from the crowd by doing what you say you're going to do, by thinking really creatively, you will be successful. Like, I'll give you an example. We've been playing around with a few modern social media ideas within some of my partners, and really resonating well, right? You got to think, the job of me is to change behavior.
Yeah.
And how are most people consuming information at the moment? Well, it's on social media. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's YouTube. It's all sub 5 minute stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The traditional business sense is we go into a room for an hour and we will just talk at you, right? If you could be someone that can kind of scrap that old model and go, look, I've got some interesting modern ways of communicating to customers and to prospects and to partners, you're going to be a really attractive candidate for someone.
Wow. That's so interesting. What you're saying is that if you're able to leverage the technologies of today, if you're able to really observe the trends of today and bring that into your working sphere, rather than abandoning those things. Because traditionally what we do is you go to work, you're like, you become somebody else and you kind of plug into the way everybody else does things. What you're saying is actually bring those ideas into work, and that helps you set you apart from everybody else, which I really love. Ed, imagine like someone's listening to this and they're like, they're at a point in their career where they might want to have a career transition. And they're like, you know what, I've been hearing a lot about cybersecurity and I want to move into this space. And let's just assume that they tick some of those boxes you mentioned. They've got they've got a creative approach to life, and they've got good principles about them. They do what they say they're going to do, and all those things. They've acquired some of those ways of operating. How does someone go from one career into this cybersecurity sales thing? Like, where do you start if you wanted to get to a role like yours?
So firstly, LinkedIn is a brilliant tool to figure out what jobs are going in this market. So if you went on LinkedIn right now and you search cybersecurity sales, you will see an unimaginable number of roles in this industry. It's a booming industry. So that's first place to look. Second place is probably look at your personal network and go, is there anyone that's touching IT or cybersecurity, and go and have a conversation with them. Go and ask them what they do. And you might find that there might be some actual techies in there, but they're not the ones that sell it. And they may know someone that's connected to the industry. And then I would, just kind of common sense of getting immersed in the world of cybersecurity and immersed in the world of IT. So there's loads of programs on Netflix that you can watch around cybersecurity and examples. Mr. Robot, as an example, was a great series that sort of normalized some of the terms of hackers and what their agendas are and that kind of stuff. So immerse yourself in the world. But I'd say finding opportunities of work. Google cybersecurity companies in the UK, you will see a massive list of companies that are growing at a tremendous rate.
Right. But what you're saying, and I want to make sure I clarify this, is you don't need a specific degree to do this job.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
there may be circumstances where the candidate profile, they prefer some kind of bachelor's degree because they've got a graduate program, for example. But my experience is that the most successful people that I've seen have all come from just wanting to get in that business, just wanting to make money, just wanting to help customers. So I don't believe it's a prerequisite. And I think if you've got transferable skills, been in a business for 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, that can move over to this world, that's worth its weight in gold. You know, I always put experience over pieces of paper.
Right. And can I just ask you, Ed, how old are you?
I'm 28.
You're 28. You're making over 10K a month on average, and you didn't have a degree to start off with. I mean, that is literally phenomenal. Like, and honestly, I'm going to say to people, just react to this in the comments. What sort of questions come up for you for Ed? Jump in the comments related to cybersecurity sales. Jump in the comments and let us know what those questions are. Ed, let's just shift gears a little bit and talk more personal finance now. So you're a high earner and you've clearly worked hard to get there. You've had to be creative. But how would you describe your current relationship with money?
So I'm sure my wife would have some colorful things to say in this department. But I'll be honest, Ken, I had a big jump, obviously, at a young age to access to quite a lot of money. And I had the choice to really level up my outgoings, right? So a bit of background, me and my wife bought our first house. I was just turned 22. She was 20, 21. We had no help from anyone. We had to save our money. We did nothing for 2 years but go to like the cinema once a month kind of thing, right? So we had a really good discipline of minimalizing our outgoings and maximizing my income. So we had that discipline. And then when I started earning, you know, a lot more money, we decided to actually keep our outgoings as low as possible, even though I could afford a nice car and finance, even though I could have probably leveled up the house, right?
Interesting.
But now, right, it's almost like it was written for us. We almost live the same lifestyle that we do when I was on a third of what I'm on. But what I'm able to do now is, for example, my wife and I have a 1-year-old and we've got a baby on the way. She doesn't have to work anymore, right? Until she wants to. So I have, like, it seems to be like an old fairy tale that, you know, you can have a man or the breadwinner going out and earning money, the woman, wife at home, you know, bringing up children. And for me, that's really important. That's worth its weight in gold. So, you know, that's paid for it. That's such a good ROI for me, is that my children have their mother around in those first fundamental few years. So keeping your outgoings low and maximizing your income, I believe, is the secret.
Absolutely spot on. Do you mind me asking what your savings rate is? Is this something you work out, or an estimate of your savings rate on a monthly basis?
So I would say we probably save or invest at least on, you know, on an average month, it's anywhere between £1,000 to £2,500, depending on what's going on. On the big spiky months, we'll just hammer money into the mortgage or into savings or whatever, right? So our current plan at the moment is to become mortgage free as soon as possible. So we have no consumer debt because we killed that all, right? Even when we didn't have to. For example, I made a little mistake a few years ago. I thought that I was getting stressed and I wanted a personal trainer in terms of a training course and that kind of stuff. So I thought maybe this career world isn't what I want. What I want is I want to be able to go and be a personal trainer. So I spent £5,000, Ken, on trying to learn how to do that. And I took it at 0% finance. And I said, hey, that's just free debt. It doesn't cost me anything. But I realized that from a mindset perspective, I was still owing money to other people. So, you know, killed that off, paid that off.
Interesting.
And now we have no consumer debt, and everything we're going is going after the mortgage. So our plan at the moment is to be, you know, mortgage free by my mid-30s, so that you know, I've got choices on whether I want to continue to do what I do, back, or maybe it's just we hammer our investments, hammer our retirement, and I can retire early. I don't know.
Do you know what? It's so many things to talk about on this conversation. So for you, the next 7 years is going to be mortgage free, which is going to be phenomenal. But one thing that I wanted to touch on is this focus on mortgage free, because as you know, we were chatting offline before we started. You were like, the first video you watched on our channel was the video on how we paid off our mortgage in 7 years. And I
Yeah,
can tell you right now is one of the most life-changing things we ever did. And that message is even more relevant now. We're seeing interest rates like going completely nuts at the moment.
yeah,
There are estimates that by next year, the base rate by itself by next summer will be about 6%. Then you
yeah,
add on another 2% for the margin that banks might want to get. People might be looking to pay around 8% in interest rates on their mortgages. And so this message remains like, I'm just so happy that we actually did it, even when interest rates were low, because the effect of compounding was less aggressive on that debt growing. So we were paying it off even more aggressively. But I just hope that this is a reminder to people. In fact, if anyone hasn't watched that video, which I hope there might be people who might not have watched it. I'll just link to it below and above actually, because some people might want to go and watch it. Go and watch it and really try and prioritize becoming debt free is really good advice. And it's for me, honestly, it means so much to actually hear you see that as a key area of priority in your life, as well as obviously investing your money and all those other things.
and something
Um,
that I encourage your listeners to think about is just because you can doesn't mean you should. For example, we had the option to really go for the quote unquote forever home, right?
yes.
We live in a modest 3 bed end terrace. It's a normal house for a normal people. But my wife will sometimes say to me, "Hey, you earn all this money. We should have the big 4 or 5 bed detached
Yeah.
house mortgaged up to the eyeballs." And we nearly did it, Ken. But what we did is we kind of realized, what would that look like for me and the pressure on me and my finances going forward with us as a
Yeah.
family? I would have to earn what I earn now for a very long time. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
instead, we it's great that I do, but if I don't, it's
Yep.
not the end of the world. So just
Yeah.
because you can borrow up to your eyeballs doesn't mean you
Yeah.
should.
So much wisdom there. Honestly, we were exactly the same situation. We were told we could borrow at the time up to £600,000. We
Yeah,
could borrow. We did not even borrow half that
yeah,
because we were so determined not to. Because we knew, like, because there's the other big penny drop for a lot of people right now is a lot of people are starting to realize that a mortgage is actually debt that needs to be paid back.
yeah,
Because before their mortgages were like this dormant thing on their in their net worth, where they were like, oh well, it's only like a few percentages, it's only like 1% or 0 point whatever, so I don't need to pay it back. So for a lot of people, it was just cheap debt. But now a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, this rate's rising. I'm having to pay an extra £600 a month, an extra, couple hundred pounds a month. And this is a big deal with rising costs, with inflation, and with the stock market declining. So this mortgage thing, this conversation is a pretty big one. I hope that
yeah.
this segment of our chat really helps people to pause and reflect and actually rethink. And for the people who are trying to buy properties now, you don't just because you can doesn't mean that you should, like you said.
We should
Yeah.
put that on a t-shirt, Ken.
Yeah, exactly. And quote you, quote Ed. So let's just talk about. I ask this question all the time. I want to just ask you: do you have a side hustle? If you do, what is it? I mean, you
So
don't supposed to ask.
I don't, Ken. Do you know what? I've often thought maybe I should. Maybe I'm missing out. There's a bit of FOMO there. But to be honest with you, I think I do quite well with where we're at, and
Do?
time with family and friends, I think, is too precious.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of people try really hard to do extracurricular activities that would result in that sort of steady passive income. But
Mhm.
for me, I'm not built that way. I think I actually like being employed. I'm not that entrepreneurial. You might think, really, but yeah, I like
Yeah,
working in a secure company where I can kind of do my absolute best, but then I can just shut my laptop and not have to worry about it. So
and that is a good place. That is a good place to be, by the way. So a lot of people who do side hustles are doing it because they want to earn more and get to where you are. But
yeah,
you're already earning it in a job, in a sales capacity, which in a way is actually entrepreneurship, but within a company.
yeah,
That's
that's a good
pretty
way to
much
say
what
it.
you
Yeah.
do. Let's talk about like childhood real quick, Ed. Like, what do you think you learnt about money from your parents growing up, whether like good or not, not good. What do you think?
I think I learned quite a lot in terms of maybe what I didn't want to do in my life. So on reflection and looking back and looking through, I think I learned that having lots of nice things doesn't make you happy.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
I think I learned that people care more about who you are as a person than the things and the toys that you have to show around.
I agree.
And my parents split up when I was little, so having kind of two separate Christmases and all the different family dynamics that kind of helped. Having a single mom with me and my sister, and her moving very frequently from place to place with different houses. I like stability now.
Stability.
I like the idea of this being the only house that I'll ever be in. Whether or not I get to do that from my wife is another thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think I kind of learned some of the things of maybe not that they made mistakes and I'm going to learn from them, but more this is the way that I want to live my life and this is the way that I want to value things. And I really don't value possessions, because at the end of the day, we are all going to leave this world,
Exactly.
whether we like it or not, and you can't take it with you.
True. Absolutely spot on. I was going to ask you about spending. Since you're a high earner, you've told me you don't value possessions. What do you spend on to treat yourself?
I love food. Yeah, I love food. I think food's the biggest for everyone, I think. But going out for a lovely meal is and you know what? It's nice for it to be a treat because
Yeah.
even when people sort of that don't earn that much money or maybe scale back or something, they still go out for a Nando's every week, right? I would encourage you to not go out for a Nando's every week, but go out for one really nice meal a month,
No.
right? Same cost or maybe a little
I
bit less.
like that. That's a good
People
idea.
appreciate it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'll share a perspective with you. Your listeners may not agree with me on this, but I actually don't think winning the lottery would be good for anyone, right? You look at the stats, and actually, it's pretty negative about the outcomes of people's lives when you get an obscene amount of money. And the reason I say that on this topic of conversation is you can only eat the best steak once. Once you've had it, everything else is not as good. So, making sure that you can have a break with those nice gaps. So, whether it's buying that nice thing that you want, if you do that all the time, it just becomes something that you have to do to maintain that level. But if you give yourself that break and that discipline, I think you can get into a space where you really enjoy things more.
Wow. I love that. And I do believe in what you're saying about like making sure it's a treat. It just gives you that thing you're looking forward to it. It's special, and it's not just, it hasn't got consumerism written all over it.
Yeah.
I think it's really powerful. Let's just talk dream now. Let's cast your gaze into the future, thinking about where you are right now in your journey. What would you say, Ed, is your ultimate financial goal? Like, what is all this stuff about? Like, you and your wife, like, what are you guys dreaming about?
So I want to have paid for house and a very well funded pension. And I want to be in a position that when my children, my two kids, my daughter and my son on the way, where I can just be so present and I can sleep well at night. And it's not to have the big fancy house, it's not to go on the big fancy holidays, it's that I can be 100% present. And you know what, if I want to take 2 years off because I can, I want to be able to do that, right? Or if I fancy, making a big splurge, maybe I'll use all that extra income to go and save up and do that, but not do that with debt, not be, a slave to the lender. So for me, it's, financial kind of freedom in my sense is being able to make choices and decisions that maybe you wouldn't if you hadn't chose those lives and those decisions prior. So just being a really present father to my kids and also to my wife, I think is the best thing possible.
Do you know what? I'm smiling so much because Mary and I, in our world, we call it living a life of financial joy, that life of no stress, no worry. Like the amount of peace I get at the moment being able to wake up, and I obviously know many people are struggling, but you can over time, and it takes a while to design your life in such a way that you wake up without money stress. It takes a great deal of sacrifice. It takes a great deal of trade-offs, not living like everybody else, making countercultural decisions all the various things we've been talking about. Doesn't mean that you will not make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made loads. But the point I want to make in addition to yours is that if you choose a particular life outcome, you can arrive at that particular life outcome over time. It takes a while to get there, but if it's what one desires, one can get there and actually achieve it over time. But Ed, honestly, it's been absolutely amazing chatting to you, man. Like I feel like I've learned so much about cybersecurity sales and really a lot of the things you've shared resonate with me so much because I'm definitely one of a growth mindset, and you're definitely one of a growth mindset for sure. So, and without that growth mindset, you wouldn't really be where you are today. So it's been great just hearing you
Yeah.
share so much. If someone wanted to reach out to you, Ed, and say, "Hey, look, Ed, look, if it's okay with you, I want to hit you up and just connect and just learn more about cybersecurity sales, where can they reach you?"
So yeah, I'm kind of one of these guys that's like, oh, I don't use social media. Oh, but I do use a bit of LinkedIn. I do use a bit of YouTube. So to be honest, LinkedIn is the place to find me. Ed Halse, Halse. Find me on there. Drop me a message. More than happy to answer any questions, or if I can be of service or useful, I would love to be able to put you in touch with anyone that you'd find that beneficial. But yeah, I try and stay off the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams. Yeah, I think I spent enough time on places like YouTube watching people like you, Ken.
Awesome, awesome. YouTube is quality. This is why we prefer to create on this platform. It's been amazing for really sharing valuable content like the one we've just created. Ed, thank you so much. It's been amazing chatting to you. Guys, if you've not seen already, we've got lots of videos in this series covering all manner of traditional and non-traditional careers, whether it's investment banking, becoming an accountant, engineer, or whether it's becoming a gamer, a YouTuber, a poet. They're all on the channel. I'm going to link to some of those below as well as above. And just head over and binge the playlist. There's so much value in hearing the real life experiences of other people and their careers. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. And as always, in all things, be thankful and seek joy. Ed, thank you. Take care, people. Speak soon. Bye bye.